Hi Chloe, how are you?
Good. Hi, Lisa. How are you doing?
I'm doing really good, thank you. I'm really excited to invite you to this interview on behalf of Shine Awards. Today I'm going to be asking you some questions about your career in illustration and how to get into the business, and also just some personal questions about you and how you have your methods in art as well. So before, just to start things off, I'd like to give you a small introduction. So currently Chloe is working as a freelance illustrator and story writer. If you'd like to just, maybe expand on what you're currently doing or currently working on, if it's not too top secret at the moment.
Well, at the moment, I'm 2 weeks waiting to hear back from a pitch I pitched for. So I'm waiting. I've been limboing, waiting for that to find out if I've got it or not. And I've just finished a education book project with OUP, which is Oxford University Press. So that's been good fun. So I'm just waiting to hear back to do the cover. So in the meantime, in the in-between bits, I'm sort of working on my portfolio and just sort of chilling out a little bit, because sometimes and I've been writing, so I've kind of just been like full on creative, like blam, and so you kind of need to step back sometimes and just have some time off. So I've
Imagine.
just been doing a bit of gardening, tidying up and stuff like that, and just doing a bit of drawing and pieces. So yeah, it's been nice.
I'm glad to hear it. Yeah, it's clearly the pandemic's not going too badly then for you. If the gardening's been.
Well, yeah, no, it's been absolutely godsend having the garden, but yeah, it's been up and down with work over the last year, as you can imagine. So yeah,
Yeah. So just to kick things off then, can I just ask a few questions just
yeah,
about
of
you
course.
personally? So it's just first things first, did you always want to be an illustrator? Like, was that something that you were always kind of drawn towards, and maybe that was something you had an epiphany, sort of decided to do in the middle of your education? Like, how did that pan out?
Yeah, so like most illustrators, you'll find if you talk to them, we've always drawn, and that's what we've always been quite good at or loved doing. I think I was 10 years old, I was in year 5, and Mr. Stroud, my teacher at the time, just let me do art for pretty much every project we had. It was incredible. So I'm not massively academic, I'm okay, but I'm not great at maths or anything. So he saw that my passion was art, and he just sort of helped me just put it into everything I did. And it
Mm.
was when I was 10, I sort of realized, oh, you can become an illustrator as a career. And it was pretty much when I was 10, that's all I wanted. I was like, oh, I'm going to do that. So I did everything. I sort of just went down that road really. I sort of did art college, then I went to where I did a BTEC in fine art, so you cover a lot of basics. It was really good grounding in sort of fundamentals. And then I went off to university, which was Southampton Institute at the time. It's now the Solent University. Did that for 3 years in illustration. And then I ended up working in fashion for about 6-7 years, something like that, doing trend and colour forecasting. And then it was the year before they were going to put all the fees up. And I thought, well, if I'm going to really have a go at properly illustrating, not that I kind of wasn't anyway in fashion, but I was like, this is the year I've got to do it. So I applied for my master's at Kingston University, and I did it, a master's in illustration. I sort of focused on children's illustration there, and that's kind of where after that I sort of straddled fashion as I was trying to get into children. So it's sort of, yeah, so it's been a long journey.
I think, yeah, but it sounds really interesting, especially the fashion. I think it's interesting that you can have that combination of fashion and art. Like, it's not just
Yes.
one sort of.
Yeah, and you'll find a lot of illustrators don't come from sort of, they might not do the degree sort of way into it. They might just do it through. I've got a friend that was a secondary school teacher, and he ended up sort of doing it part-time. Then he sort of made that become full-time. You'll have people come in from all sorts of different backgrounds, and that kind of feeds in to your style and stuff. So yeah, there's all sorts of ways into it. So yeah, for me it was just a long way long
Yeah.
way around.
I think it's really interesting. Actually, I wanted to ask as well, how do you establish yourself as a freelance illustrator?
Mm.
I think it's quite a difficult sort of, well, from just my sort of understanding of it, seems quite very difficult to establish yourself if you're freelance. So how did you go about
Yeah,
doing that?
so I've always found it interesting. It's not really ever taught at sort of university or college or things like that. It might be now. Definitely wasn't when I was studying. But you kind of, I guess, in a way, and my dad's a plumber, so I've always grown up in a sort of freelance, self-employed household. So I had a knowledge of it. if you don't have any sort of experience of it, you kind of have to learn as you go along, I think. So the rise of social media really helps because it's a platform, it's like a shop window. So you can kind of put your portfolio on it, you can get your website set up, you've got Twitter, Instagram, all sorts, and you can sort of show your work, you know, it's like your wares. And so you have a shop window for people to come and see what you do, and you sort of build up your contacts and your network through that, really. I think that's pretty much how I did it. And then you sort of start following other people in your industry, and then through that you find about book launches or book fairs and things like that. So you know people that would publish your work are going to be at those things. You try and get a meeting with them, and then you sort of start emailing people, so then people start knowing who you are. You just sort of keep that going, and eventually it takes a long time but it sort of builds up, and that's kind of how I did it. I think it might be very different for other people, but for me it's just been a long process, really. And it's your sort of it's your office space, because when you're working freelance on your own, it's not like some people go into a studio, but for me, I work from home, so that's my office room. So when I log into Twitter or Instagram, and you're connecting with other people, and you just sort of build it up.
Yeah, well then thank God for social media.
Yeah.
I think you're right. I think it makes things just so much easier in terms of just getting found out. And actually, I wanted to ask you as well, because I noticed that you've been I don't know, like the correct phrasing, assigned to an agent, or is it like
Yes.
I don't know, employed by one? But you definitely have quite an illustrious one. So I was just wondering, like, how do you go about maybe getting, I don't know, just found, or like, is it something that you can control somehow? Or do you just they just happen upon you? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, so sometimes they can headhunt you. I've known people that have been headhunted, but a lot of the time it is you work on your portfolio, and if you wanted to go into children's illustration, you would look up all the children's illustration agencies or lit agencies that you feel like you would fit in with, and then you just have to go through either their submissions guide, or maybe you might have met them at a networking event or something, so you can sort of use that, and you can email them directly, and you just email them, you sort of ask, you know, would you be interested in representing me, but you've got to brace yourself for a lot of knockbacks. Like, it's the agency I'm with now, that was my 4th time applying. So it's, you know, sometimes you might be lucky, you might get in first time if you've got what they're looking for. But it is just doing your homework, do your research. If you are what they might be looking for, or you feel like you'd be a good fit, you just got to go for it. Because if you don't try, you're never going to find out. And you've just got to sort of build up that hard skin, but also listen to the critiques they're giving you. If they turn you down, they might give you a reason why, or they might not. So you can ask them, you know, like, well, what was it that didn't make you want to take me on, and all this sort of stuff. So they're really, really good sort of learning practices points, I guess, to sort of, get good critique.
And what is their like role? Like, how do they help you in terms of your career? Like, do they find clients for you, or like what's their role?
Yeah, so they are sort of an in-between you and the publisher. So when I was sort of representing myself, you have to obviously do all the illustration goods, and then you've got to then put on your business hat, and then start emailing them directly and trying to organise meetings and all that sort of stuff. So your agent would do that for you in a way. So you're sort of freed up to do more of the creative stuff. But they also can put you forward to pitches and things like that. So a publisher might come to the agency and sort of say, we're looking for someone that can do X, Y, Z. Who have you got? Or they might find you through their website and go, oh, well, we want this person to audition. Like, it's almost like an actor audition. You sort of have to, you know, be asked to do it. And you might be the only one, or you might be one of 10. So they're really good at sort of opening doors for you that you might not be able to do yourself. So they're worth their commission fee for that.
And in general, is it a difficult business to like be in? Is it like very cutthroat, or because like I mean, I don't because I can't really. That's the thing. I feel like so many people don't really have like a sort of experience with very freelance illustrating. I feel like it's not something that's just very widely known. So like, is it difficult? Like, do you have any advice maybe for someone who might be just starting off or interested in starting? Like, you know.
Yeah, I mean, it is tough. You've just got to kind of be stubborn, I guess, and kind of really stick it out. Because if you know you're good, then you've just got to hang in there, and someone will see that you are. But it can be quite lonely, I guess, if you've not got sort of someone to sort of bounce ideas off, or you want someone to critique your work. Like, your loved ones are great; they're always going to say your stuff's amazing. But if you can't get a real good sense of if it's working for the purpose. So having an agent can help. Having a network of other like-minded freelancers is massively important, because they're your support network. And going and then just trying to find there's sort of, sometimes you can find meetups and things. So again, it's just that, so you're not on your own, I think, is the hardest thing. So finding other sort of illustrator meetups where you can talk about work, it's like talking shop, can be really helpful, I think. But yeah, it's good because the time is your own. You make it what you want. You can do 14-hour days, you could do 6-hour days, you might smash something out in 4 hours, and then you've got the rest of the day for yourself. So it's got pros and cons.
Yeah, I can imagine. I think it's all just really interesting, actually. Yeah. Now, if we were to just sort of maybe transition into some like more art-based questions, just maybe from your experience as well. So I personally have had the opinion. So I mean, I use like digital art, but obviously I can't really say that I'm like a professional or anything. But just from my own experience, quite a few people have said that like digital art seems to be it's much easier than traditional mediums, and it's kind of because it's just more accessible. But I don't think I personally agree. Like, what do you think is like? Would you agree with that, or do you think it's like? Is it like easy to start with digital art, or like maybe transition to traditional like digital after traditional methods? Like, what do you feel?
Yeah, so it's either or, really. It's whatever you are comfortable making art with, and how you want to say what you want to say with your medium, I guess. I've got a friend that does she does everything traditionally, like she uses paints and all sorts. So when she sends that off to the publisher, if they need something changed, she's then got to redo the whole spread. Whereas I kind of pretty much work digitally now. I used to sort of do a bit of both. I would draw the outline of my work and then scan it into Photoshop and then colour it digitally, because then I could erase all the colouring in. But now I use Procreate, so I draw and colour digitally, and it's brilliant. It just sped up my work so much, because I'm not spending time redrawing something on paper, scanning it in, taking it off Photoshop. Then I was going on to Procreate to colour it digitally, and I was like, I just need to do it all on Procreate, because then it cuts out all that stuff. So it's got pros and cons. If you're happy to do it traditionally, and then then you've got to change something, and you're happy to do that, that's how it is. You just sort of make it work for you. There is no right or wrong. It's just, I think with digital, it just makes it maybe a bit quicker. But I don't know all the shortcuts, so it probably takes me longer to colour in some things than somebody else, because they've worked out a quicker way to do it. But you're constantly learning,
Yeah,
So
no,
yeah.
exactly. I think it's interesting. Yeah, you bring up both Procreate and Photoshop, because I personally swear by Procreate, and I'm exactly.
Yes.
I have no clue in terms of no, what a lifesaver, Jesus.
Yeah.
But I couldn't. I'm completely the same. I have no clue with half of the shortcuts. I'm probably spending hours more than I need to. But I think it's interesting that you also brought up Photoshop. So like, what would you recommend personally? I mean, Procreate, obviously. I don't know.
Yeah,
Maybe
I
that's
think if you can do Procreate, you can probably do Photoshop, because they're very similar, intuitive ways of doing things. I think that's why I found Procreate quite easy, because I've been using Photoshop for forever. But there's so many tutorials, like Procreate's. I think they've got an Instagram, and they're often putting things on there. And I learned a quick colouring shortcut, I think, last week, and I've been using it for 5 years. I'm like, oh my god, I've wasted so much time. If I just sat down and probably spent a day sort of really going through like a tutorial or something, that it'd be really quick. But Photoshop I just learned at art college, so I sort of learned the basis, and then you just sort of start playing around, and that's how you sort of learn it. But that's the only two I know. I don't know any of the others. Illustrator is a completely different language. No idea how you use it. But again, it's, you could sit down and find a tutorial or get someone to teach you, you know, but it's whatever you need the thing to do for you, I guess, is what's important.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think for beginners as well, like I've heard like sort of different opinions about like what you should start with. And I know that Procreate isn't always accessible if people don't have like an iPad or
Yeah.
anything. So I'm assuming then like Photoshop must be like it's probably the second best option if anything, right?
Yeah, I mean it's not cheap. I mean I can't upgrade my Mac, as you know they make you download new sort of software, whatever it is. So my Photoshop's the one before, they now make you pay per month. I don't use Photoshop enough to warrant paying for it every month. So I've got my sort of Mac's frozen in time. So if you've got an old version you can find, or there's a different one. There's like a similar program. I can't for the life of me think what it's called. I think it begins with A. But there's similar programs out there. So if you can't access or afford Photoshop, there are definitely different versions out there. But that's why Procreate's good if you have got, even I think they even have an app on their phone. So even if you didn't have an iPad, or you can get hold of a cheap one, like my iPad's 5 years old now, so it's, you know, it's not new. It works on there. So it's sort of just finding ways around it, I guess.
Yeah, no, I completely understand. In terms of, I think since we're kind of just along this vein of like, you know, beginners and like how to just start off, like what would you recommend to people just starting, like maybe how to get over any sort of self-doubt over like, I don't know, their abilities, or like, I know that art block is just one of the hardest things to overcome. So do you have any like maybe something that you go to whenever you need inspiration or something? Like do you have anything sort of like that?
Yeah, so I guess starting out, the best thing you can do is just put your work out there and regularly. So if you've got social media accounts, just put it out there, and just don't get too hung up on how many likes you get, what people are saying, all of this sort of stuff. It's just getting used to that part of you not being you in a way, if that makes sense. So when I post, it's my business hat on. I need this work to be seen because it might lead to potential work or something like that. Or sometimes I just do it because I've had fun and I've enjoyed the picture. But it is, you kind of, for me, I sort of separate that thing where if someone says, you know, they might not like the arm on a mermaid or something, I don't know, it might be too short, it might be too long, but I'll take that in, I'll go, oh yeah, no, they're right. And then you sort of you can retweak it and make it better. But you've got to get used to that process of not taking it personally, I guess. And I think that helps you get over the sort of the shyness around, you know, putting you out there, I guess, in a way. So that would be my biggest tip, would be just get it out there, get it seen, and then start sending it off to publishers and stuff like that. And that kind of, and then for art block, oh, it's the worst. I've had it so much this year. You just have to sort of, and it does, and I have to say it, and it did make me realise what helped me with art block was going out and hanging out with my mates, because when you work at home, you obviously can't see them all the time in your room, so you have to go out and see them. And that was my switch off from overthinking why can't I draw this, or what do I need to draw next. So yeah, so sort of just going out, go for a walk, maybe watch one of your favourite films, read some books, just do something completely removed. So or like for me, gardening is the thing for me, because you just don't think of anything. It's like a type of meditation, I guess, but it's just do something that just takes your mind off. There's just no point forcing it. Sometimes you have to observe the block and then let it do its thing, and then you'll watch something, or you'll be out, or you'll be in the shower, and a spark of inspiration will hit, and then you're back on it. It's just, you can't be creative 24/7 because you'll just burn out.
I think it's really important, to remember that. I think there's a lot of pressure just to kind of consistently good as well. And I think
and I think, and that is the downside of social media, is because it's everyone's best foot forward, and you think, oh, everyone's doing this amazing stuff all the time, and comparisonitis kicks in. You've got to just take it for what it is and go, oh, they might have just done that the day before, whatever. It's not, you know, you've got to keep that in mind when you're looking at stuff on social media, and I guess that applies for most things on social media, to be fair. So yeah.
No, but I definitely agree. I'm also just curious as well because I've seen like on your website and stuff, you've got a lot of like cultural sort of references to things. And I think it's just really interesting. So if I could just ask, like, how do you go about maybe finding like a source of inspiration, maybe I don't know, from like culturally or like I don't know.
Yeah, that's so cool you picked up on that. So that's probably, so I grew up in Hereford on the Welsh border. So our family sort of moved from London when I was quite small. And there's just, it's a wealth of myths and legends and sort of really old tales, and it's sort of wrapped up in Arthurian legends and all this sort of stuff. So going into the library when I was a kid, I just got all the books out because I just love fairy tales. That's all I sort of read when I was growing up. And so that sort of thing, just, I've always been interested in it. So then once you consume that part of your world, then you start looking elsewhere. So I think it's just always been something I've been interested in.
Yeah,
It's
no,
escapism, isn't it?
I think, yeah, no, that's definitely it. I really appreciate it because like I'm Russian and I really like the kind of nod to Baba Yaga as well. I thought that
Yeah.
very, very nice. I did like that one. So do you ever feel like you kind of draw on your like childhood experiences maybe or something just to, as a form of inspiration? Because I'm always curious in how like people, you know, like just art I think is such a reflection of where people draw inspiration from. And I think it's just always, I'm always curious as to where people, you know, so like do you feel like you ever from like your childhood maybe or like I think, yeah.
Yeah, I think so, because I think you sort of, I know I'm a children's illustrator and I kind of draw for me. I'm not really thinking about who's reading it. I'm like, am I enjoying this? Am I having a good time, you know, doing this picture for me? And it is because you're putting in you're putting in your, like say, your childhood influences, things you did as a child, all that sort of stuff. So I think you're completely spot on. I mean, that it is for me anyway. I can't talk for other illustrators, but yeah, I would think massive. I think everyone just sort of draws on their experiences and puts it into art. Yeah.
Yeah. In terms of the future as well, I'm just kind of curious now. Do you have any maybe big plans or something that you've always been like, I don't know, putting off and like hoping to get it done? I don't know.
Yeah, no, it's funny you say that because obviously when lockdown hit, I was like, right, well, and I had no work coming in, and I'd always had an idea to write a longer story, like a chapter book, and I just sat down and I just smashed it out. I just got it done in the first part of lockdown. I was like, oh, I did it because I didn't think I would be able to write that much. I'd sort of only ever written 5,000 word dissertations at art college and university, so I hadn't ever written before and I didn't know if I could do it. So yeah, so I did that, and then obviously got a new agent in the summer and she loved it, and I was like, oh, okay, so there is something in there. So we're sort of working towards trying to get that sent out next. So that's kind of my personal plan, is to hopefully get that published. So we'll
Yeah.
see.
In the future, so you think that maybe you could transition into writing as well? Because I think it's always just maybe creative people that just sort of branch out into all things creative, really.
Yeah, I think it's always gone hand in hand. When I think back all the things I used to draw when I was a kid, I always had a story to go with it. So I think I've always had stories. I've just never had the confidence to just sit down and write them. You know, it's that classic, oh, it's probably not going to be good enough, that sort of thing. So
Yeah.
yeah, but it's nice to be able to do the two, because if you write something, you can then show how it looks in your head. Whereas if
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if I'd be able to just write and then give it to somebody else to illustrate. I
Yeah,
think
of
I'd be
course, I
too
mean,
precious and controlling about it.
no, of course. No, I think it's really encouraging to hear as well that you can have like it can be both. Like you don't just have to specialize in just one thing as well. You can be.
Absolutely. And I've got a friend that he was signed to the same agency and he got signed as an illustrator, but he's actually ended up selling his books. So you just don't know. He's amazing. Yeah, he's fantastic. So yeah, it can go either way.
I think yeah, that's then definitely the joy of illustration and just being
Yeah.
creative. Well, I think maybe just to wrap things up, if you could give maybe, I don't know, some final piece of advice or like one thing that you could say, maybe even to just like someone my age or like a Shine entrant or something, you know, just like one piece of advice, no pressure. But
Yeah.
yeah,
I don't know. There's so much I guess practical thing to do would be to get a really good chair. Because honestly, it will change your life. And just to keep going. Like, if you believe in yourself, it will happen. You've just got to keep going, listen to good critique, get good critiques from people in the, in the know-how and in the industry, and just put it out there. Because if you don't put it out there, no one's going to do it for you. So you've just got to, keep on.
That was really very, very profound. Thank you. That's really good. Sorry to put you on the spot like that, but
Oh,
yeah,
no.
that was really good. Okay, well, thank you for your time, Chloe. To everyone who watched, thank you for listening, and I hope you found that helpful. And yeah, so thank you for your time, Chloe.
Oh, no, thank you. Thanks for having me on. I've loved it.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.